The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Hello, welcome to another episode of 8 Stories, a Multifamily Media Network podcast. I'm Sharon Cauthen, and this is my co-host, Jennifer Carter. And today we are here to talk about 8 stories from around the multifamily landscape. So there's a lot to get through today. It's going to be fun. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Let's get started. Jennifer, Blueprint, what can you tell us?
Well, we have a fabulous giveaway and we are excited. The Blueprint is the future of real estate. It is September 17th through the 19th at the Venetian in Las Vegas. They just released the full agenda, so it looks like it's shaping up to be really great. 3,000 plus attendees. If you can't find a friend, you can make a friend. 250 plus speakers. And people from really, they're mentioning 50 plus countries, learning, networking. I'm super interested. And I know you probably are too, Sharon. I've not been to this conference before. And what I love about it is it has different lanes or avenues, right? So it has multifamily, it has hospitality, which I'm a huge fan of, CRE, and some other ones. So, yeah, I'm super excited. And we have a chance for our listeners to win a free entry. Now, we do have to make note, no travel or lodging included, right? But the ticket is an $1,895 value on a ticket. So we do. Yeah, exactly. So all you need to do is you can go to multifamilymedianetwork.com and then you can write in our header, and there might be a pop-up even, but I know in our header you can go to Blueprint giveaway and you can enter there and our winner will be selected on the upcoming Monday.
That's very exciting. And Blueprints especially, I've never been, but I've been reading about it. And I really have never been to a place where all the entities of commercial real estate are sort of under one house. So whatever lane you're in, from construction to management to transactions, and all the different types, like you said, hospitality, multifamily, student housing, senior housing, you name it, office space. If you have anything to do in the commercial real estate world, this is a conference for you that is going to feel very different, I think, from many of the other conferences we go to, where it's almost exclusively just the kind of housing that we work in. So I'm excited to get takeaways from all these other areas that we can apply to our industry.
It's my favorite. My favorite, to look outside and then apply. Hey, there you go. I like that.
So don't forget to go to multifamilymedianetwork.com and hit the Blueprint giveaway and get yourself to Las Vegas, baby. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be a great time. I can't wait.
So going to story 2 in our podcast as we climb our 8-story building. On story 2, I want to talk about a recent episode of Optimize, which is a podcast that Janice Rosses is she's the host of that podcast. And she interviewed a woman called Lauren Dewey, who is a multifamily marketing expert. And they discussed the importance of goal alignment, collaboration, and storytelling in marketing. And it was really interesting. There were some great takeaways. It was filled with a lot of nuggets that you could just easily take that bit of wisdom and apply it where you are. Also, the guest has written a white paper, and that white paper is available, and it too is full of really great information. I downloaded it yesterday and started diving into it, and I've got a little bit more to read through, but this was a great one. And so Optimize, Janet Rothis, and it just dropped this week, so give her a listen.
Yeah, she is great. But both of them have a lot of great industry experience. Like you said, it's very practical, which I think is one thing that I love, is being able to listen to a podcast and then take things that are practical and implement them.
We're in the same subject, but we're going to take it to the next story. It has to do with this goal alignment. There's no way that you can meet your client's objectives or the owner's objectives, whether they're in, if you're in-house or whether you're doing third party. You can't meet objectives if you don't know what they are. Even if you go in and you do your very best property management, if you're aiming for the wrong goal, then you are not going to be successful. So I think that alignment of goals is one of those critical conversations that you can have in when you begin to take on any assignment of management. And those objectives change throughout the life cycle of the property, right? Like there's lease up, there's stabilization, there's, capital plans, there's, maximizing rents in some markets. There's how can we, stable because the market is so bouncy. What can we do to retain residents as much as possible? So that goal is going to change, and you have to be part of the conversation in order to really meet those goals. So that's what I have to say about being aligned on your goals.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Without a goal, I think the line might be without a goal is just a dream. You got to have a goal.
It's
So
beautiful if you have the same goal.
yes, of course, of course.
Because, there comes a time, and a lot of times when they're watching the market, the asset managers, the owners, they're saying, wait a minute, we see a lot of turbulence coming. So let's back off on these rent increases. Let's do whatever we can take to really go and head into this strong and stable. But you're still chugging away at, we're going to get the biggest rents that we can possibly get, and your exposure is growing. But I will not continue to beat the horse of that, only that it's a really important conversation to have.
For sure, especially going into budget season, making sure the goals are right, right?
So going into episode story 4, we're going to climb up those stairs one more time. This one, same episode, but it caused me to think about how marketing is storytelling. And I'm a writer, I'm a storyteller by nature, so I love anything that is storytelling. But when it comes to marketing, Jennifer, you're a marketing guru. What do you think about when you're using storytelling?
I am a huge fan of storytelling. I think that when you're marketing, your product, your brand, you need to be able to tell the story. You need to be able to connect the dots. You need to be able to have your consumer feel emotion, right? Or empathy, or, have being able to relate to that story, but being able to tell the story where the consumer can see themselves in that story and find a place. And if they can, then they're, probably more apt to purchase your product or live at your community. But telling the story, I think, is super important. You really want to focus on not facts or features or benefits, but connecting that. And it's more about the dots in between each of the things that the community holds, maybe, or the business. But ultimately, I think telling the story behind the scenes, almost the why, and kind of getting those things across is super important.
Yeah, I love what you said about storytelling being really connected to emotions and getting people emotionally engaged with what you're saying. And it, it's so easy to trip yourself into the role of it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath with blah blah blah, and you're just listing everything it's got, but you haven't learned enough about your prospect to be able to share it in a more storytelling fashion.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we mentioned it last time, or maybe it was the episode before, about even storytelling on your resume, right? Like, I think you mentioned that a little bit too, of like telling your story, not just your accomplishments, right? So, again, kind of really taking that piece of storytelling into the community, and your residents and your prospects. And again, the experience, what's it going to like to live there, not just what you have to offer.
Yes, it is not a good sign when your resume is very long, because nobody's going to read it, for one.
Yeah.
And for two, nobody needs a list of your job duties. If you are at a certain level, we're going to make an assumption that you have done X, Y, and Z because that's the duties of that position. What we want to know is, what do you love about what you do, and what are some of your big ticket successes, not every little success that you've had along the way. And think about I see this in bios too. I don't like to see a resume recap. I can see your resume on LinkedIn. That's easy enough.
Sure.
I want to hear who you are. Tell the
Well,
story of who you are.
and I think to your point, right, at a community, we can go online and see all the pictures and see all the features and see all the benefits. And it's the same thing, but maybe when you're looking at social, you're telling that story, right, through videos. And I think that's another thing too, is incorporating video on your website anywhere and anywhere you can, because that's able to create that emotion or that storytelling, besides just solid, stock photos or general photos of the community. So
Absolutely right. Okay, we're going to move to story number 5. But first, I have to warn you that this one really got under my skin a little bit. And this has to do with a photo that was going around this week on social media. And I saw it on LinkedIn. And it was a beautiful bride in her wedding dress and veil. And she's sitting on grass for some reason. But in the photo, she's sitting on grass. She has a laptop open on her dress, on her lap of her dress, and a cell phone up to her ear. And the caption reads, "The regional manager doing budget." And I was like, are you kidding me? I was immediately, I had a visceral reaction to it because I've been in the industry for 30 plus years now. And I have seen a lot of what I consider to be sort of abuse of salaried employees because we have had a set expectation that they would work almost around the clock. They're always going to take the call. They're always going to respond to the email. They're always going to know everything. You can't know everything until you jump in and you're like trying to figure out everything. And the idea that we would have an expectation that a bride would, on her wedding day, stop to make sure she had input one more thing on her budget really upset me because this is a true story. And it's a horrible story. And so that's why it stands out in my memory of why abuse of salaried employees is so gross. This woman was a regional manager. She had a premature baby by cesarean, and the baby was in NICU. The mom came back to work in 1 week because she needed to save her paid time off for when the baby got released from the hospital. And I could not understand why this was not a huge problem for us as a company. Why weren't we saying absolutely not? We will not let you wear yourself out and come in after surgery before any doctor would possibly clear you to be driving around visiting properties and working. And, that's just one example, and it's a really gross one, but there's a lot of examples of that. And I think the trend now is more towards putting your money where your mouth is on putting boundaries in place and setting an expectation that time off is time off unless there is something really exceptional. And that means fire, flood, or blood. That does not mean we need one more budget number from you. So I think that the payoff is that when companies really hold that as sort of holy, then you attract and retain higher quality employees because they know that they will be given a fair shake on their private time. But I don't know if I told you it got me all up in arms.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too. I think the other thing too is that what we have to remember is even if the employee feels like they want to do something to that direction, right? Whether that's extreme of the wedding day or what it is, as leaders, we need to be better to say no, right? We got this. I got you covered. Don't worry about it. When you're off, you're off. And as a leader, I think that's really most important, right? You're going to have employees that want to go above and beyond, that want to not take a paid time off day or, want to check in still when they're on vacation. But I think as leaders, it's our job to hold our teams, to the boundaries so that when they come back, they're 10, 20, 30 times better and really focused and re-energized, right? So again, because I wouldn't be doing that on my wedding day, but I would be saying that I do understand the picture, right, of working even when you're supposed to be off. But I know as a leader, it's also my job, and I tell anybody I work with, hey, I've got you. Go enjoy your time, right?
Yeah, I think we broke up there for a little bit, but the gist of it is that it's up to the leadership to hold those lines and to say, no, I appreciate that, because we have a tendency to have these big meetings, and what do? We reward the behavior of the people who sacrifice their personal time all the time. So it's sort of a mixed message. And as I said, it's one thing when it's a true unforeseen event that's major.
Sure.
If you've got a fire, then absolutely people are going to be there after hours doing what they can do to help out. But it's not fire, flood, or blood every day. So we have to really hold those boundaries and not send the email at midnight and expect. We may not expect a response, but we're sending a message that response may be expected. So
exactly.
I encourage people to use that concept of seeing that photo and think about how am I contributing to this problem? Because as leaders, we do sometimes contribute in ways that we don't recognize that we are part of the problem.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's where I think the real onus is on leadership to be the ones who carry that flag.
Yeah, for sure.
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of the Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Partnering with Chadwell Supply helps communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. Learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
All right, I got that one out of my system, so we can move to story number 6 now. And this is something that you brought, Jennifer.
Yes, this is a battle, man. I feel like we continue to have in this industry, and that is transparency on pricing on websites. I shared actually a LinkedIn post from Eden Chai. He's at Flair, and he shared that he's the co-founder of that. They put pricing on their website, and this has been a conversation I think over the last 3 or 4 years, very heavily on the supplier side. Do we showcase pricing? Do we not showcase pricing? I think that this continues to change. And I do think that, as much as a situation where people might think, well, I wouldn't want that pricing to be shown, it's really not about the eye, right? It's about the consumer and how the consumer is shopping. And there's many studies out there that not even in the multifamily industry, but that you go and search what you want before you go and talk to somebody, right? And so ultimately you're looking to get some validation, to get some base price point before you talk to somebody. And I think it's shows transparency, authenticity, when you do showcase that. And ultimately, again, it's changing how the consumer is buying. So we really need to think about that in our industry. Because if we don't, what's going to happen is, and I think it's already started, is, consumers or management companies are ultimately going to other folks almost behind the supplier's back, getting what they need to get, internally talking before they go and talk to somebody. So why not just show your cards up front, right? In essence, and be open and create and build that trust from the start. So it's just something that I'm kind of passionate about, is being open, as honest as possible.
I feel like that's something that on the multifamily operations side that we've really started to do for our customers. Almost any property that you're considering living at, you can see not only what the rent is, but when a specific unit's coming available and what that rent is on that unit. And that is something that changed the game for people who were our consumers, who could really do it, their shopping and their understanding before they ever left. And then they're looking for what they're going to fall in love with. And I felt that was an incredible move in the right direction, because it could come down to a specific unit price, not just necessarily that all the units of this floor plan have this price. This one may have a particular thing about it that makes it more valuable in the marketplace. So I think we're there, but you're right. When I go on a website for a product or service, it can be very difficult. And I have to give up my name, my age, my serial number, my address, my job title. Like, I have to give them the whole world. And then what do I get? I get a spam email. Even then, I'm not getting the information I'm looking for.
Exactly.
So I think what we gain in transparency is much more than what we lose by thinking we can hold back. And because once they know what it is and they're asking for more than your package, then you can talk about what that extra might cost. But you got to give them a starting spot.
Exactly. Yep. 100%.
So transparency, yes, that's what we're saying about that. All right, it's already time for story number 7. Jennifer, this is another one of yours.
Yes, I have been in the weeds lately with data because I love data. And most recently, Medallia market research study came out, and I thought this was super interesting. Again, this isn't specific to multifamily, but what I think is interesting is it's the situation, and the data probably does speak to multifamily. But half of the consumers in their study they did, they're showing that the companies are taking shortcuts and having a negative impact on the customer experience, right? And so ultimately, this was what kind of got me, was that consumers are walking away from brands after 2.4 bad experiences, which is quite it doesn't take much anymore, right? Ultimately, it happens pretty quick. Their tolerance is pretty low. But to get that consumer back, it's 6.5 good experiences
Wow.
to get them back to be loyal after churning. So you think about that in so many aspects of our industry, right? Prospect, resident has 2 bad experiences. Let's call it 2 maintenance service requests. They're out, and now they probably don't want to live ever at another community of yours anywhere in the US, right? And you have to work 6.5 times harder to get them back as a loyal customer. So it's data that I think is important. Reviews are important. Thinking of it takes, years to build your reputation, but minutes to destroy it. So ultimately, really thinking about the customer experience and how much of an impact that really has.
I'm surprised even that people stick around for 2.4 bad experiences. But depending on what it is, I think if your business is in the restaurant world, then I think that it's less.
Probably. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah.
But it is so important because once we have them as a customer, once they're living there, it's even more important that we're giving them reasons to love it.
Yes, and to
If
stay.
they never listen. TikTok is filled with people who are saying how much they hate something. Most of them are not saying, I moved into an apartment and they are incredible. You wouldn't believe what they've done.
That's true. Very true.
It would be my goal to say, I'm going to make sure that we are getting rave TikTok reviews. I'm going to find residents enjoying us, and I'm going to say, hey, do you like TikTok? Would you mind just doing a really quick, tell us what you love about it? Like, actively pursue that kind of engagement so that you're building. It hits on several things we talked about today, but try to avoid that 2.4, and it takes 6.5 positive things to make them happy again.
Mm-hmm.
So if that was multifamily, then that means if they have 2.5 roughly negative experiences, then you need 6 plus to get them to a place of feeling like they're really happy again.
Yeah, and if that's the case, you think about, right, somebody moves in and let's just say their apartment's not clean, all right? So that's already one ding, right, from that perspective. And then let's just say let's just say they're upset about the pet, whatever, all over the place in the yards, right? In the communities.
Yeah.
That's 2 right there in the first 30 days or whatever it is. You really have to work very hard over the next 6 months to really make an interaction a positive one for them, because you're going to try to ask them to renew 90 days in advance with a renewal offer. So again, I think that every interaction, maintenance, leasing, just every experience that you have, you really need to put that customer experience first and foremost, and it's worth it.
It reminds me of when we talked about the empty chair in a prior episode of the indoor, and there's always an empty chair that represents your customer.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go to story number 8. I can't believe we're already at the end of today, but let's talk about Zega.
Yeah, so this one's interesting. They came out again with a report. Everybody's doing reports, which is great. But this one's about maintenance, and I have a large part of me loves maintenance. Again, I've kind of moved into this, but they're so under, valued, and they deserve so much. And so I'm really into the maintenance aspect and what we can do from that perspective. So this report showcased there was a gap, which is super interesting, between what property managers say is important to renters versus what's actually important. So you've got 2 different perceptions from 2 different people, but the gap is like insane. It's so large, which means we're missing the opportunity, right? So when it comes to maintenance repair specifically, this report showed that 21% of managers think maintenance repairs are important to residents, which I was a little shocked. I'm like, 21%, that's kind of low. But the interesting part is renters importance. 47% of renters say that maintenance repairs are important.
Absolutely.
So isn't that huge? That's like 20 something, 20+%, right? Difference. So what I took away from that is really that we have to listen to residents, right, of what they want. It's not really what I think as important as a property manager, right? We have to kind of get out of that mindset. It's really, again, what you touched on about the consumer, the resident, the buyer, what do they find important? But I also think it's, really important to remember that in maintenance generally is that residents don't want to be in a home where something doesn't work, right?
Right.
And so that's where the perception of value becomes like, I don't want to live here anymore. So I think we need to really acknowledge the gap, create a plan to close the gap, and then, of course, implement the plan to close the gap. And that can be communication, DIY videos to help maintenance service requests, self-serve help videos, and just other ways to really communicate between maintenance and residents.
And if you have sister properties that you maybe
Yes.
one has got a backup, you just dive bomb it to get that caught up, because that little irritating thing becomes a bigger and bigger irritating thing, like a rock in your shoe. If you've got broken things in your house, and a lot of people rent by choice because they want a maintenance free lifestyle, and that we're failing them on what that expectation is if they have work orders that hang out there for a while,
Yeah.
especially if it happens without any communication on why.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. The why is the big thing. I think a lot of times we don't know the why, so we assume, and then, it becomes a hurricane or a tornado.
Yes. I can't tell you, and maybe it's because I've been in this industry forever, but I can tell right away whether somebody knows what the answer is or if they're just pulling it out of the air.
Yes, very true. Yeah, make sure you do know. I think that's a good point, right? Because that goes back to authenticity and transparency.
Trust.
And although you can't really fake it, right? So it's like just be true. And they'd rather say, "Hey, I don't know," and then follow through on that, though, right? And go find the answer and come back to them.
Or even to say, we are a little backed up on work orders right now. We have prioritized some AC requests over other standard maintenance. If you can bear with us, we want to get people home as cool as possible. And then we'll be right back to our regular cadence of getting work orders
I
done
love that.
quickly.
Yeah, I
Most
love that.
people
That's
will say, well, yeah, I'll choose to wait on this thing because I don't want other people in 95 degrees to have no AC. But
And I love that. I love that t-shirt because it also makes me think that if you were to tell me that as a resident, right? It makes me think that that's how you would treat me if I have an AC issue,
right.
right? And that's important to me, and that shows that, hey, what kind, that you're willing to help those residents that need to get their AC. It just comes back to how you would handle it if I were in that situation. So I love that. That's great.
Yeah, it feels like a reasonable thing that you would want that, and you want it for someone else too. But it
Yeah.
really is just the communication. If your package is going to be late, I can't tell you how many things I get emails just to let me know that a time has changed, but it's not changed substantially. Like, I don't need to
Yeah,
know
you're
what.
right. Yeah, 3 to 5, 4 to 7, right?
Yeah.
Like
But if you're somebody who's coming to my house and you got to change your hour time frame, then I want to know that. Because if
yeah.
I'm waiting on a service person or on what, and you told me that this is the time frame, I'm gonna get a little antsy towards the end of that time frame if I haven't heard anything.
Exactly. Yes. I'll start calling you. Where is this? What's going on
What
here?
happens? Because we all have lives. We need to leave our homes. We don't need to sit there all day long. And if you've
Yep.
waited already and kicked out half your day, then that's the kind of thing that's annoying.
Very.
Listen, we really enjoy bringing these stories every week, and we love hearing from you. And we've had some really fun comments. So we'd encourage you to tell us what you think about today's episode. Did any of these things really resonate with you? What did you think about the bride working on her wedding day? What are there stories that you really want to cover? Or do you have a really funny or great story that's happened? We'd love to hear about it, and we'd love to share it. So please leave your comments. I'm going to sound like a social media person, but don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you back again next week.
Thank you again to Chadwell Supply for sponsoring this episode. Chadwell Supply delivers unforgettable service with next-day delivery, online and in-person maintenance training, and procurement platform assistance to make ordering simpler. Visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference to learn how Chadwell Supply will make your day